Hi friends, welcome to the very last video of our Demystifying Phrasal Verbs week. Can I just take a moment to thank you for joining us? Thank you. Thank you for sending your comments and sharing your story throughout this week. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here with you and to see you actively participating, sending questions, and getting excited about this new way of understanding English phrasal verbs. And this is why I created the Demystifying Phrasal Verbs Week, to show you that you can understand and use phrasal verbs confidently in your everyday interactions. In the last couple videos, I started sharing with you what I've learned throughout my 11, almost 12 years of English teaching experience. I also shared with you that I went to school. I went back to school, and by school I mean my master's in TESOL. Studied a lot, but I also spent countless hours of personal study, like my own personal wrestling, trying to make sense of phrasal verbs. Yep, it's been a long journey, but it's been so rewarding. Now I can confidently say that phrasal verbs can be learned in a way that makes sense and not simply by memorizing long and boring lists. Some people do that, but what if learning phrasal verbs can be fun and engaging and meaningful? Isn't that cool? So if you've watched video number 2, the video that I posted a couple days ago, you'll remember that we talked about what phrasal verbs are. And I also shared with you the key to understanding them, right? And if you've missed that video, don't worry. You can always go back and watch it again. You can pause now and maybe go back to that video. It'll help you understand this video much better. I'll try to share the link in the description below as well. Now, some of you might be wondering, Teacher Natalie, in the last video, you helped me make sense of phrasal verbs like tear up, come down with, eat up, right? And I write it down here again. Tear up, eat up, come down with, right? But how about burn down? You did not talk about burn down, Teacher Natalie. And the reason why I'm emphasizing this phrasal verb to burn down is because of my story. So if you watched the first video, you remember that I shared how I used burn down in a way that it was not quite right. Go back to watch video number 1 if you haven't. And ever since that moment, I've had this question on my mind. Why do we say that a house burns down instead of just saying it burns? Why do I need down? I mean, can I just say burned completely? Yeah, you can say that. But why do people say burn down? And why I cannot say that I have this pile of paper or these pieces of paper, I cannot say that they burn down. Why is it burn down used to talk about a house being completely destroyed? Let's revisit the core spatial meaning of down. Let me grab my marker here. Down, this one, right? We're starting from the particles, and let's revisit the core meaning of down. It often indicates motion from top to bottom, right? Downwards, like this, down. But in a more figurative sense, in a more figurative way, it can also suggest reduction, down, right? Or destruction. Think about what happens when a building collapses. The walls, the roof, everything comes crashing down or tumbling down, right? This is where the particle down adds meaning to the verb here, to burn. When we say that a building burns down, a house, a building, we're not just saying that it catches fire. We're saying that it burns completely to the ground. It is reduced to ruins. It's destroyed by the fire. You see how the particle adds more meaning to the verb. Now, what about pieces of paper? When you burn paper, it doesn't collapse like a building does, right? The paper disintegrates into ash. It doesn't really collapse like this, So from a cognitive linguistics perspective, which we touched on in the last video, we briefly talked about it, right? Our physical experiences shape the way we understand and use language. And since burning paper doesn't involve the idea of something falling down or collapsing, we simply say burn. I'm going to burn these pieces of paper. We don't say burn down. Even if you're burning them completely, you're just burning the paper. So this pattern, using down to indicate that something collapses or falls to the ground, it always conveys, or often, I'm going to say often conveys this idea of defeat or failure. And this is why we also say, my brain is like loading the information. This is why we also say that a car breaks down, right? It stops working. My car broke down. It broke down. Literally speaking, the car did not break down in this downward motion. But the idea here is that down indicates failure, right? Something stops working. So the car broke down. A machine breaks down too. Machines break down. They stop working. We also say, so let me write break down here first. To break down, right? Break down. And when we talked about polysemy in our last class, we talked about phrasal verbs having different meanings, right? So to break down means to stop working, like a car or a machine stops working. It breaks down. But I can also break information down. I can analyze something and explain it in a way that's very easy to digest. So I can break it down. You see, I break it down. Like I give you this detailed explanation. So throughout this week, for example, our demystifying phrasal verbs week, we are breaking down the meaning of particles so we can better understand phrasal verbs. Yeah, another meaning of down, let's focus on down again. I talked about collapse, failure. So failure, if you say that a company went down, so the company had a lot of investors and then the company went down, it failed. Maybe it went bankrupt. You see, it failed. It's just not successful anymore. So the company went down. So, wow, there's a lot here. To go down in the past simple tense, went, right? So the company went down. The past went. All right, let's erase this. I have no idea where my eraser is. The rag is back because I've lost my eraser. If you watched our video yesterday, you know what I'm talking about. The rag, right? Get out of here. One more thing I want to say. Pay attention to patterns. So if you see that you keep hearing, oh, this house burned down, this building burned down, this castle, this construction, whatever, it burned down. So burned down, okay, so I use this when I'm talking about buildings. You can think about the patterns as well. This is going to help you know how to better use this phrasal verb, because learning phrasal verbs learning vocabulary in general is more than simply learning the word, its meaning, and whatever logic or explanation there is behind that word. We need to learn how to use the word, and language is not just, okay, this is what you do and you follow this rule and everything makes sense all the time. It's not quite like that. So always remember, next time you have a conversation about documents, don't say that you're going to burn them down. Don't do what I did. I'd like to answer a great question that I got from one of my followers on Instagram. She asked, how do we know which words to combine in a phrasal verb? How do we know the right combinations? This is such an important question because, for the most part, phrasal verbs are fixed expressions. For the most part, okay? I'm not saying always. To learn them, we don't usually create new ones by randomly combining verbs and particles. Like study, the verb to study, I need to study a lot, up, right? Okay, I need to study up. Not really, it doesn't work like that. Although, I'll be honest, okay? If you look up study up, you probably find people using it. I mean, native speakers of English make up, create phrasal verbs all the time. So it may not be a standard phrasal verb. Like if you go to a dictionary, maybe you may not find something that says study up, or maybe you will. Maybe it's something newer because native speakers use these patterns. Okay, up, more, so study up. Interruptions are great opportunities for learning, so let me interrupt myself to show you something that I just found out while editing the video. Here is Cambridge Dictionary, and this is what happens when you look up study up. Nothing here, nothing. Go to Longman, nothing here. But then you go to Youglish.
People were beginning to study up. People were beginning to study up at that point, which meant studying.
People were beginning to study up.
If I would read, if I would study up,
If I would read, if I would study up.
The strategic game. Like you can't study up for it the same.
You can't study up for it.
And we decided to.
The first study up.
The first study up.
The first study up.
And this is a TED Talk. Okay, so how do we know a phrasal verb exists? How do you know something is a phrasal verb? It's not a simple answer. So I like the approach to look at language from the perspective of the speakers, right? Because we are the ones that use language. So because people use the phrasal verb to study it up, I'm going to say it is a phrasal verb. All right, back to the class. So instead of worrying about how to form new phrasal verbs, the key is to understand the ones that already exist. And my approach to teaching phrasal verbs involves taking time to understand the core meaning of the particles so you can better understand and use phrasal verbs that already exist. My goal here is not to help you create new phrasal verbs, although you can. Once you understand the patterns, you'll be able to even become more creative and want to create some new phrasal verbs. But the idea here is to focus on those ones, focus on the phrasal verbs that already exist. And when English speakers create new phrasal verbs, like Google up, I'm going to Google up the meaning of particle. I'm going to Google up this information. You see, to Google up, to look up something, you're searching for information about something. So to Google up is a new phrasal verb. So you'll be able to understand Google up because you know other phrasal verbs and you understand these other phrasal verbs. Okay. Knowing the core meaning of up and its meaning extensions, because the idea here is up has this core spatial meaning, this upward motion, but this meaning can be extended and used in more figurative ways. So up can mean more, it can be faster, intensity, it can mean completion. We have all these meaning extensions that stem from the core meaning of up. Let's go back to burn down. When you know that down often conveys collapse, reduction, destruction, it makes sense why we say burn down when a building is reduced to ashes. Like, so down. Okay. So this approach, okay, down, it helps you remember the phrasal verbs better too, rather than just memorizing them randomly and like, okay, it's burned down, and then you won't get confused. Is it burn out or burn off? You know what I'm saying? You know it's burned down because you have this idea in your head of something crashing down. Another great question that we received, how can I remember and use phrasal verbs more easily? How can I remember? There's so many. I agree. I just read the other day, I'm always reading papers about linguistics and phrasal verbs. And I read the other day that phrasal verbs make up 1/3 of English verbs. It's a lot. It's almost like, let me grab my marker. You have this pizza here. You divide it into 3 parts. Wait, how do I do this? I'm not a math teacher, guys. Oh, okay. Peace out. Peace. 3 parts, right? So 1/3, this whole slice here. Okay, English verbs. This pizza here are English verbs. Phrasal verbs make 1/3 of this pizza, this huge slice. It's a lot. Some linguists even estimate that there are over 3,000 phrasal verbs, like established phrasal verbs, not counting the ones that are popping up everywhere. Yeah, it's a lot. Okay, back to the question. How do I remember phrasal verbs? There are so many. So I firmly believe that understanding the core meaning of particles helps you make sense of phrasal verbs because it makes them easier to be remembered. Because, it's meaningful to you, so you remember it easier. However, learning new words, learning vocabulary, learning expressions, phrases, it takes time. Some studies suggest that you need between 8 to 20 encounters with the word or language chunk, like the piece of language that you were learning. You need to encounter that between 8 to 20 times. So the thing is, it's not just about understanding the phrasal verb. Okay, I understood it. Now I'll remember it. Not necessarily. You need to see the phrasal verb over and over again. You need repeated exposure to that phrasal verb or phrasal verbs you're learning. So, what can you do? Surround yourself with English. Listen to podcasts, watch videos. You're watching this masterclass. Engage in conversations. The more you expose yourself, the better. The more you will encounter phrasal verbs, the better you will remember them. So surround yourself with English. Another thing is, I like to tell my students to keep a vocabulary journal, a place where you can write down new phrasal verbs, their meanings, example sentences, your questions, and you can always revisit this journal. It doesn't have to be physical. It can be on your phone, like a notes app or something like that. But have a place where you can go to and revisit these words that you've been learning, okay? It's really important that it is a place where you can go back. You can go back to this place and revisit all that you've been learning, okay? Third thing, practice using the phrasal verbs. Don't just recognize them and be like, yeah, I know this, I know that. No, no, no. You have to practice using them. Try to write down sentences. I talked about your vocabulary notebook, right? Write them down there. But try talking to people. Really find people. If there's one investment that you can do for your English, for your language learning journey, find people you can talk to. Practice using what you're learning, okay? So if anyone has any other questions, feel free to send them in the comments. I can try to answer them directly in the comments or maybe on my Instagram. So make sure to follow me there on Instagram because that's an easy place for me to go back to and answer questions and interact with everyone. One thing I know, when phrasal verbs start making sense, you're gonna feel limitless. You feel more empowered as you speak to tell stories, to be yourself when speaking English. And this is my own experience. And I'm not suggesting that you need to master phrasal verbs completely. You need to know everything. No, no one knows everything. I don't know everything. No one knows everything about anything. Did that make sense? What I'm trying to say is instead of tiptoeing around the gaps in your knowledge, when you understand phrasal verbs, your communication will flow better. The, the words will like fly off your tongue. My husband likes to say this, so I'm kind of copying him now. Fly off your tongue confidently, like the words will just fly off, like they're here, they'll fly off, on, off. You will start to understand and be understood in a way that you've never experienced before. And that's my experience. Okay, I just want to encourage you because I've been there. I remember crying, not in front of people, sometimes in front of people, but I remember crying because I wanted to be myself. I love telling stories. I love telling stories. I love to talk in a way that people really understand. I like to say, add details. And when people, if they told me, don't worry about learning phrasal verbs or don't worry about these details. The most important thing is to communicate. Yeah, I agree. But I wanted to communicate in a way that I like, in the way that I feel like myself. So my point here is not to say that you need to know everything and be a master, like know all about phrasal verbs. No, what I'm saying is when you understand phrasal verbs, when you become more confident using them, you'll be able to feel more natural and more confident in your everyday conversations with other English speakers who also use phrasal verbs. This that I'm talking about here is for advanced learners of English. If you are a beginner, first of all, you wouldn't even understand all I'm saying. I'm talking to advanced learners. You guys, I know that you're here perhaps because you feel this gap, like I used to feel this gap in your knowledge. And I'm here to help you. I'm here to show you that there is a way. Don't believe these voices that say, you don't have to investigate things, just learn to communicate and that's it. No. Follow your desire to improve your English. Try to fill this gap. It takes time. It's not an easy process. But I'm here to tell you that I'm proof that hard work pays off. Pays off. Look at that. Like, seriously, I feel like a few years ago, watching myself speaking, using all these phrasal verbs, I don't think I thought I would reach this level someday. And I did. And if I could, you can. No crying. Okay, no crying. I can't even talk anymore. I told you, English is not my first language. And this is my passion. So, with all this being said, if you're ready to take your English to the next level, to level up your English, and have a good understanding, a very good understanding, a very solid foundation of phrasal verbs, knowing phrasal verbs well, keep an eye out on your inboxes, on newsfeed, or just keep an eye out. Be on the lookout for something that I'll send you. I'll send to your emails, but if you don't check your emails, I'll post this on Instagram as well. So this coming Monday, I'm going to be sending you more information about Light Up, Phrasal Verbs Demystified. I'm gonna write this down here. Let me grab my rag. This rag. Gosh, is it gonna be a joke now in all my classes? Light up. Phrasal verbs demystified. That's the phrasal verbs course I've been working on for forever. You've seen me talking about it in my stories on Instagram, and yes, I've been working on this for a while now, and it's finally gonna be here. It's a series of courses to help you understand and use phrasal verbs in your everyday interactions. So I'm gonna send you this offer that you don't wanna pass up. Pass up. Another phrasal verb. You don't wanna miss it. So yeah, it's gonna be a series of courses, 5 courses, and live sessions every week as well. I'm going to send you all the information Monday, okay? Be on the lookout for that. Make sure you don't miss the email, the link, because we'll be having this live cohort element. So the registration will close soon, okay? I'm not going to leave the registration open for too long. We need to close this first cohort, this group that will meet weekly, okay? Please drop a comment below with your thoughts, questions, ideas, concerns, anything. I'd love to hear from you. And thank you again. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Obrigada. Since I have people from other countries, let me try to say thank you in other languages. Gracias. Merci. Shukran. Thank you, my friend Saja, for teaching me that word. I'll never forget you. Arigato. Arigato. Something like that. My friend Chow taught me that one, but I can't remember how to pronounce you. Thank you in Chinese. Help me out, Google.
Thank you.
Oh, no, Chinese.
谢谢.
谢谢. 谢谢. 谢谢. Bye.